Hey, what's up guys? It's Sam here with Custom PC Review, and today's unboxing is going to be on a motherboard, and this is the Z68 Professional Series Fatal1ty Generation 3 motherboard. And right on the front you kind of have the Fatal1ty logo as well as a picture of the guy behind Fatal1ty, who is Jonathan Wendell, and he was a professional gamer, but of course this is a motherboard unboxing, so we're not really going to get into him right now. And right on the front of the box you do have all of the logos for many of the technologies and features that will be incorporated in this motherboard. Right on the side of the box, again, you have all those logos right there. So moving on to the back of the box, we have all the features that will be included in the motherboard. Of course, we will see that later, but if you guys really want to read all the features, be sure to pause the video at any time. But a couple of the most important things, I think, is of course that advanced V12+6 power phase design, and that allows you to deliver cleaner power to your CPU, and that in turn will help you achieve higher and more stable overclocks. Another thing that is kind of stands out to me is of course the Pci Express 3.0 slots, and that's a feature that is solely reserved for Generation 3 motherboards. Otherwise, let's move down to a couple more features, such as the Smart Response technology that allows you to pair a smaller SSD with a larger hard drive to use as a cache to speed up your hard drive, of course. You also have graphical UEFI, you also have Lucid Virtu. Over here you have a couple of product specifications, and here's a closer look, but I'm not really going to go over it. If you guys want, remember again, just pause the video at any time. Okay, so this box is kind of interesting in that it has a front cover area that has all the features listed once again in a little more detail. So on top you have that Fatal1ty story if you're very interested in the Fatal1ty story. Of course, we are more interested in the features of this motherboard. So the first thing you have there is the digital Pwm Design, and this is a Pwm design that pretty much allows you to again maintain and get to a higher overclock more stably, of course. That's that V12+6 power phase design. You've also got the Fatal1ty mouse port, and basically what it is that the USB port there is set to a certain polling rate, in this case 500 Hz, and that's pretty much what Fatal1ty likes to play his games at. So down here you also have those 6 USB 3.0 slots, 2 in the front, 4 in the back, as well as 6 SATA 3 ports. So if you're using a SSD that supports SATA 3, be sure to plug your SSD into one of those SATA 3 ports. Next thing, of course, is the Pci Express 3.0 slots that we just talked about earlier. And this motherboard does support 4-way SLI and 3-way crossfire. And finally, you do have the premium gold caps. I'm not sure if that actually does anything to the performance of this motherboard, however they do look extremely cool on the motherboard. So here you do have a window of the motherboard on the box itself. On the top there you have Z68 motherboard Generation 3 Professional Series. Alright, so let's unbox this motherboard and Alright, so let's take this motherboard out of the box and see what's included. And this package is extremely large, and the packaging actually looks very good and definitely conveys a feeling of a high-end motherboard. And of course this is one of the highest end motherboards that Asrock makes, so but that sort of kind of explains the packaging of this one. And on top you have just a box for the motherboard, while on the bottom you have a box only for the accessories. So we're going to take a look at the accessories first, and as you can see there's a lot of accessories. So the first thing you have is that USB extension right there, and that should fit in a front bay somewhere. Here's some instructions on using Virtu and what Virtu is good for. Alright, so the next thing we get is a quick start guide on using Fatal1ty X-Fast USB technology, which apparently is faster than your imagination. So, very interesting. Next you have a software installation guide, and it's pretty much explains the BIOS features and things like that. And here you have what's supposed to be a quick start guide, but it feels more like a user's manual. You also have a driver's CD, which you shouldn't use. You should actually go to the motherboard's manufacturer's website and go download the latest drivers. So the first thing we have on the left side of the box is that I/O shield, followed by a 4-pin Molex to a SATA power connector. You have 2 SATA cables in here, one with the 90-degree angle, one without. We also have a DVI to HDMI, and also a IDE and floppy disk drive cable, which is pretty interesting. Another 2 SATA cables, another Molex to SATA power adapter, a back plate for the USB 3.0 in case you want to put it in the back, not the front. And here you probably have an SLI bridge or a Crossfire bridge. I'm not sure which one of that it is, but it's one of those two. Finally, we do have another SATA 3 6 gigabit per second SATA cable, 2 of them to be exact. And we also have a 3.5mm to 3.5mm jack. And that is pretty much it for the accessories. Alright guys, so we are now going to move on to the motherboard itself. And this is a very, very good looking motherboard. I really like the styling that they've used. Red and black and gold always work well together. Right in the middle you see that CPU socket 1155, so supports all Sandy Bridge processors. Of course, you'll probably want a K edition processor to go with it, considering the overclocking capabilities of this motherboard. You also have those nice heat sinks right there, and that V12 plus 6 PWM. Right on the right side you have the DDR3 memory slots. You've got 4 of them, and they all support up to DDR3 2133. Up here you've got that 8-pin connector in its nice usual location. On the right side of the motherboard you have that 24-pin connector along with the IDE connector, as well as USB 3.0 header right there. And following that you have 4 SATA 2 3 gigabit per second ports, followed by 6 SATA 3 6 gigabit per second ports. Below that you have the Dr. Debug, which shows you the BIOS codes in case of error, along with a motherboard mounted reset and power switch. Down here you have the case headers. You have a couple fan headers, followed by front 1394, followed by 2 USB 2.0 headers, a COM port header if you need that, floppy header if you need that, and the HD audio and another header which I'm not quite sure of. But it isn't very commonly used, so I wouldn't worry about that. Well, it says IR, so it's probably infrared. You've also got 3 PCI Express X16 slots, and this does support Crossfire and SLI. You've got 2 PCI traditional slots as well as 2 more Pci Express 1X slots right there and right in the center. So there you have that large Fatal1ty logoed heatsink that does look pretty cool with the lightning bolt. An interesting thing right there, as you can see, you have mounting holes for 1366 and 1155 for your CPU cooler. Moving on to the back panel, we have the keyboard port along with 2 USB 2.0s. You have 4 USB 3.0s. You have that Fatal1ty mouse port as well as another USB 2.0. Right here you have, for display options, you've got that VGA port along with 2 HDMIs. You have 2 LAN ports, both gigabit, as well as your integrated sound ports. And you also got that clear CMOS button, which is very useful, especially if you're overclocking, so you don't have to open the case up to clear the CMOS every time with jumpers. So that's always a nice touch. Alright, so we're just going to run through the motherboard again, kind of get a close-up view of all of the chips integrated on this thing, as well as all the headers, just so you have a good look at the motherboard. And it's an extremely nice looking motherboard. On the bottom there, I mean, it's got quality written all over it. On the bottom you have actual screws instead of little plastic mounting hardware on the bottom there. And screws are usually a lot better since they hold down the heat sinks and they don't tend to pop off like the plastic mounting pegs or whatever. So that's always nice. That's pretty much all I have for you. So make sure you do stick around, as I do have a couple more shots of the motherboard for you. And I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.